the first class at First Baptist Church to have, what do you call this, live streaming podcast? What? Podcast. Okay, so if you're out of town or if you are sick or you miss class, you can come back and review our class, correct? So it's going to be on the internet live and also at the church website for later viewing. So we're excited about that. So Cody and Graham are going to have to really spiff it up now, and we're wearing a microphone now. I'm very nervous.
You can quit when they get back, make sure they watched it.
Right. But anyway, so here's our test run. We're excited about today, and Cody and Graham are so wonderful as teachers. They organized this class and started it, and we just kind of tag along. But they are wonderful, and I wish you could be at one of our planning sessions. They decided we're going to have a lesson on geography of the Middle East and the Holy Land, and so that's our theme today. We're going to look at the politics and the geology and the geography of the Holy Land today. Before we get started, are there any announcements? I know that your grandma's about the same. Is she still in the CCU?
I think she's in a room now. I haven't been given permission to see her yet.
Okay. Well,
I guess she's just with the dementia, that's the worst thing. Being in the hospital and having an IV, having a catheter, 85 years old. So.
Yeah, she's such a special lady though. We'll be thinking about her. We have Laura Lee Lewis with us today, former Miss Mississippi, and we're excited she's with us.
Blake's sister left for India last night.
Wow.
I don't know if she's in London yet, but.
Yeah. Well, she went. So we said she was leaving Thursday, but it turns out she left Thursday because she was visiting a friend
in New York.
So
not that Rebecca doesn't have friends in all places. That's.
Yeah, so she told everybody, "Oh, I'm leaving Thursday." Well, it turns out she's not leaving to go to India until yesterday. So.
Yeah.
We're good.
It'll take her a while to get there. But,
we're good.
Yeah.
So if anybody needs a place to stay in New Orleans, Rebecca's there, and
Call
just
Rebecca.
just call Rebecca. So any other announcements? Yes, sir.
I'm going to be an uncle again in maybe 10 days.
You're gonna what now? And
My sister's having another child in maybe 10 days.
oh, good. Well, good. That's great, Jess. Anything else? All right, Tim. If some of you haven't noticed, there's a renaissance going on at First Baptist Church. There is no better time ever that I've been here since '71 to join First Baptist Church. And a big part of the renaissance that's going on not only is Allison Talley, but also Tim Walker, who took our orchestra and put Miracle Grow on it. It's it's just amazing how attractive he's been for this ministry. And Tim, thank you for what you do. Thank you for your ministry, and thank you for today. Would you open our class with a word of prayer?
Lord, this is a day that you have made, and as we've come to your house today, I pray that our hearts are full of rejoicing, that we may offer those sacrifices of praise to you. God, as we have gathered as this class of friends and co-laborers for you, Lord, I pray that you would just bless Dr. Ashford as he shares this lesson. God, may it be knowledge that we can use to grow closer to you in our walk. Lord, may it be knowledge that we can use to share the love of Christ with those that we meet. God, I thank you for the diversity and the complexity of this class and each individual you've placed here. I just pray now that you just bless this time. We love you. We thank you for your goodness. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tim. And I should say we're glad to have Jenny back. She may have been back before, but she's a big part of our class, and we're excited you're here. Our class loves Jesus Christ and his ministry. The axis and the core and the nexus of our faith is the belief in his resurrection. And we love to study about it. We love to think about it. Our psalmist tells us, blessed is the man who his delight is in the law of the Lord, and we like to think about and study about the Lord. And his earthly ministry is clearly the most important thing that's happened since the creation of the universe. One of the most prophesied things, predicted things since the creation itself. There are over 300 and something separate prophecies in the Old Testament, and you can just pick your own. We all have our favorites. He would be of the lineage of David. And the angel said to both Mary and Joseph, Joseph, son of David. And he told Mary, this child will rule from David's throne. He will be born in Bethlehem, was as prophesied in Micah, and he will enter into the temple in Malachi. He will be called out of Egypt, and on and on and on. 330 separate prophecies about his life. And I thought today, since Daniel and I recently visited the Holy Land, we would just take a look at a number of things that I didn't realize until I went there about the geology, politics, and geography of the earthly ministry of Jesus. God can solve our intractable problems. And as you guys are standing on the threshold of life and just starting out, there's no better place than to lay your intractable problems on the altar of Jesus. There will be disappointments, and there will be trials, and there will be times when things don't go your way. You don't get in this school, this doesn't work out, that girl won't go, all those things that happen in life will happen. But God is in control, and he can solve our problems. And our belief that he is the author and finisher of our faith is the thing that sustains us in life. And his son came to earth for a brief 3.5 to 4 year ministry in one of the most prepared events since the creation of the universe. And I didn't realize some of these things were true. Let's look right quick. Do you see this line right here? Jesus spent his entire ministry in this little area of real estate. Why were so many events centered around this area? In fact, the northwest corner of the Sea of Galilee. He spent virtually his entire earthly ministry right there. Why didn't he go to Jerusalem, where there are a lot more people? Or Caesarea Maritima, which had been built by Herod the Great. There were ships coming and going from there all the time. His ministry would have reached out to the entire Roman Empire. Why didn't he do that? Have you ever wondered? Why didn't he go to Haifa or Jaffa or Sidon? Sidon was still controlled by the Phoenicians. He would have had an international immediate impact. You start healing people, raising people from the dead. That's going to draw a crowd and get some attention, isn't it? Why didn't he do that? Why did he go to the northwest corner of the Sea of Galilee and recruit a bunch of fishermen? Ever wonder about that? What are the geological, geographical, and political reasons why Jesus conducted his ministry where he did? Was this prepared? Was this an accident? Was it a coincidence? What do you think? Let's see. Was it unique? How prepared was it? Well, can somebody open their Bible to Isaiah 40 and read verses 3 through 5? And let's just take a look at that. And you got it, Meredith?
I will, not yet.
Oh, okay. You're the first one to glance up. Everybody was.
I was waiting on it to load.
Oh, okay. We're waiting. Isaiah, you got it?
A voice cries in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be lifted up, and every mountain and hill be made low. The uneven ground shall become level, and the rough places a plain. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken.
Y'all have read that prophecy and wondered, what? With me, I'm just no redneck from Lambert, so you wouldn't expect better from me. But, you read that, and what? Clearly some geological events are being described in the 40th chapter of Isaiah, 700 years before the coming of Jesus. But did they really occur? And when did they occur? How did they occur? And really? This is William Smith. He was a contractor. Y'all have heard of the Erie Canal in America. Well, there are a lot of canals in England. And he was a contractor who dug canals. They were about 20 feet deep, and they would haul coal on them and this and that and other. And he noticed as his crews were digging these canals that the earth was stratified. As you dig down, there'd be a layer of soil, and a layer of clay, and a layer of limestone, and a layer of sand, and on and on and on. And he noticed that no matter where they dug a canal, they would see these same strata. And he created, if you go to Grosvenor House on Hyde Park in London, he created a map, 2 maps in fact, that show the strata of England, and he founded the science of geology. Our Department of Environmental Quality here in Mississippi can provide you at a fee a cross-section through Mississippi and all the strata that go down there. So if you're digging an oil well or whatever, you can know where the producing sands are and how far they are down there to them. And as Henry Ford invented the internal combustion engine and we started digging more and more oil and gas wells, then this data became more and more critical. The science of geology really bloomed and flourished. But this is the guy that started it. And then Alfred Wegener really put the icing on the cake when he theorized that all the Earth's crust is a bunch of plates floating on a lake of magma kept hot by the center of the Earth, and they are moving slowly and colliding with each other and separating from others. The so-called plate tectonic theory was not even known when I was born, but now it is accepted science. And it goes something like this. The inner core is about 70,000 degrees centigrade, outer core, and that drives the temperature that causes circulations in the mantle, and that causes the Earth's crust to move, and when 2 plates collide, something's got to give. So something gives in the form of either subduction or superduction, which is subduction reverse. So anyway, so when things subduct, what happens? Here's a better picture. Here's where the subducting plate comes, and it pushes up this plate right here. And if we look at the Middle East, what has happened hundreds of millions of years ago? The African plate is now separating from the Arabian plate, but for a long, long time it collided and it pushed up the Arabian plate so that the Mesopotamian plain was created. Every valley shall be exalted. So the seafloor became a valley, and the valley became the Mesopotamian plain. And then the subduction stopped, and about 70 million years ago, God started preparing for the ministry of Jesus Christ. And the Arabian plate and the African plate began to shear apart, and the eastern part started moving north, and the western part started moving south. And they have now moved about 60 miles. If you go to the Dead Sea, where you can see these same strata of rock that William Smith discovered when he was digging those canals, you can back that plate up 60 miles, and they exactly bookend match. And this shear force created Israel, and this area right here where Jesus Christ spent his entire life, except when he went down here to the end of it, over into Egypt as an infant and was brought back. He was called out of Egypt. Remember that prophecy? Okay. So how straight is this? Can you read that scripture again?
Every valley shall be lifted up, and every mountain and hill made low, and the rough places a plain, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken.
It's getting easier to be a Christian, isn't it, in 2017? The geology and the science are proving the Bible right to start with, aren't they? Can this be an accident? One more quick brief visit to this. And why did Jesus spend all of his time on the northwest shore of the Sea of Galilee, which is right there? Well, when it rains in Damascus over here, or when it rains, I didn't tear that up, or when it rains in Baghdad or Babylon, far, far away, some of the water runs off like it does everywhere else, and then some of the water soaks through to a limestone base right here, and that water starts moving. Rain that happened 40, 50,000 years ago starts moving, once it hits this granite and it's impervious to it, starts moving toward the Mediterranean Sea, and it goes under this mountain range, under the Sea of Galilee. Then it hits this ridge right here. And since water can't go uphill, springs erupt. Springs erupt. And those springs are not the little Mississippi springs we have at Crystal Springs and Dunn Springs, places like that. They are gushers. They look like rice wells. And you can see where the springs are from an aerial view. This is the city of Capernaum. And you can tell where the springs are because the Israelis have diverted this enormous water flow. And wherever you got a spring, you got a town. Can this be an accident? If we look at the Sea of Galilee, all these springs basically come in and flow into and underneath the Sea of Galilee and gin up all the nutrients off the bottom of the seabed, which feeds the bait fish. And where there are bait fish, there are game fish, and where there are game fish, there are fishermen. So why did Jesus find Peter and Andrew and James and John right here? Why weren't they here? Because there aren't any fish there. Because there aren't any springs ginning up those. Can this all be an accident? Is it a coincidence? I don't think so, since it was so prophesied. All these things just a bunch of hoodoo. Is the Bible a bunch of ginned up stories that never happened? Well, I don't think so, because here is the synagogue at Magdala. Who came from Magdala? We studied about her. Mary Magdalene. She worshiped at this synagogue. It's been excavated, or being excavated. And so it's a real place on the Sea of Galilee. This is even more familiar. This is the synagogue at Capernaum. Jesus walked right here. He ministered right here. The Bible says so. It's not a ginned up story. It's a real place. If you turn around from where I made that picture and shoot backwards, you see something that looks almost like a football stadium or something, doesn't it? Why would they build that right there on the shore of the Sea of Galilee? This is Peter's house. This is where Peter lived. This is where they cut a hole in the roof and lowered the man to be healed. You can see it's an octagon. That was the main part of the house. Is that an accident? Is that a happenstance? How do we know it's Peter's house? Because right at the end of the first century, they plastered the whole inside of it, and people would come there with wooden and metal styluses and write Jesus Christ and Peter all over that plaster. Another accident? Another conjecture? They sure are piling up, aren't they? And they all seem to be following God's way. All right. Right there on the shore of the Sea of Galilee is where the Sermon on the Mount was given, and also where the miracle of the 5 loaves and 2 fishes occurred. So these miracles occurred about far from here to the parking lot apart, and they look about the same, so I just showed one slide. This is a town that a lot of people don't think about or know about much. Tabgha. It's near Capernaum. It's near Migdal. Migdal is just in from the shore there, but it kind of spills down on the shore. Here's Tiberias, and we're going to get to Tiberias some more in a minute. But as you go up here, and I just want to reference from Tiberias to Capernaum is about from here to UMC. So it's a walk, you know. And it's very likely that Mary Magdalene knew Peter and Andrew and James and John, because it's just a small piece of real estate. Like, you know, everybody in Belhaven that is anybody probably knows each other. You know, it's a small place. What are the biblical events that took place in Tabgha? Calling of the first apostles. Be there. Sermon on the Mount. See that? Healing of the leper, miracle of multiplications. Jesus walked on the water. Meeting with Peter and his companions after the resurrection and the last appearance of Jesus Christ in Galilee, which was where 500 living people saw him. Interesting, I think. The politics. You will find, as you go through life, God uses a lot of tricks to convince us that he is exactly who he is. And one thing he uses is timing. Now, we saw how he used geology and the timing of geology and those springs and the fishing and all that stuff to make the exact right place for Jesus' ministry. But what about the politics? Have you ever wondered, why didn't Jesus go some other place? Why did he go to the Galilee to do his 3.5-year earthly ministry? Why is that? It all goes back to Antipater, who was not really a Jew. He was Idumean, but he had a small little navy there on the Mediterranean, and when Julius Caesar invaded Egypt, y'all want to know about all this stuff, but anyway, Julius Caesar was attacked and almost killed and routed, and the Library of Alexandria was burned. But this guy came in and saved his bacon. He did. The reason that Julius Caesar lived to tell about the invasion of Egypt and the reason he had his affair with Cleopatra and all that is because this guy saved his bacon. So he brought Antipater to Rome, where Antipater's son, Herod the Great, went to the best royal prep school there was, where he was friends with a guy named Mark Antony, and he also went to school with another guy who would later grow up and become Caesar Augustus. So he was well connected, and this man's son, Herod the Great, was appointed king of the Jews. This man's son, Herod the Great, was in charge of things when Jesus was born, but he died shortly after Jesus was born, and shortly after he destroyed all the children around where Jesus was born, hoping that he would kill Jesus in the process. And there were 3 sons of Herod the Great who survived. They had very different political philosophies. This was the area ruled by Herod Archelaus, and he had Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and all that. He was a ruthless politician like his father and would not tolerate the gathering of a crowd for any reason because it was politically risky. His brother, Herod Antipas, was kind of in between, like the story of the 3 bears. He was kind of in between in terms of his tolerance of crowds. And you can see that in the Bible when Jesus had the miracle of the 5 loaves, 2 fishes. What did he do then? He got on the boat, went out on the boat. Where did he go? Over here to where Philip the Tetrarch, or Philippus, the 3rd son, who was so laid back he didn't even live there. So Philippus didn't care about crowds gathering, and so Jesus could pretty much do what he wanted. And when you start healing people who have been lame all their lives or blind all their lives, that's going to draw a crowd, isn't it? Okay, what about raising a dead person? They're going to draw a crowd. So what would have happened to Jesus if he had gone to Caesarea Maritima, or if he had gone to Zidon, or if he had gone to Jerusalem? His ministry would have been about that short before the government officials would step in, put a stop to that, right? So Jesus was no fool. He knew exactly the politics that had been put in place at that instant for that reason, so that his earthly ministry could proceed as we read about. But in the end, he finished his earthly ministry, and at the end of 3.5 years, Passover time was coming. And so it was time to start going to Jerusalem. Crowds would go, and a town about the size of Macomb would swell to over 250,000 people. Now, this is Caesarea Maritima, built by Herod the Great. It was a magnificent town. It had 2 hippodromes for horse racing. It had a gladiator arena. It had all the usual things that Vitruvius built in all of his Roman cities. And anyway, this is where Herod the Great and Pontius Pilate hung out most of the time. Pontius Pilate was only in Jerusalem for the festival. It was about a 3-day journey from where he hung out most of the time, Caesarea, all the way down here to Jerusalem. And he, and I'm sure his wife, didn't want to make a journey of 3 days without the comforts of the palace. So they were in town just for a short time when these events happened. But Jesus started up here in Galilee and started coming down this road right here, and he came by a little city called Shechem. What happened at Shechem? Where Jacob's well was. And Jesus met the woman at Jacob's well. Who was the first Christian evangelist? Who established the first Christian church in the world? The woman at the well. Remember, she went back in the village and established. I just wonder, it's not in the Bible's silent on this, but I wonder when he and his crowd came back through Samaria going to Jerusalem, I wonder if he stopped and checked on that little church, see how it's doing. But we'll just have to leave that to history, and we'll find out in heaven. But anyway, he comes to Jerusalem, and everybody knows the events of the Passion Week. But the thing that defines our faith, the thing that Paul told us in his letter to the Galatians, we are justified by faith, not by works. And the faith in the resurrection is the thing that makes all the difference in the world. Can somebody look at Mark 16:5? There are there are a few places that are identified as the places where Jesus was buried. There's a huge church, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, that was built by Helena, Constantine the Great's mother, and many feel that he was buried there, but there's some problems with that. A lot of people, and I think, that he was buried in this garden tomb, because as you can see where Daniel's standing, there's a rut right there. You could roll a stone over this door. But somebody read 16:5.
And entering the tomb, they saw a young man clothed in a long white robe sitting on the right side.
Okay. They entered into the tomb, and they had to look right to see the angel sitting. And when you enter into this tomb, the only one there is with this, and look to the right, the angel was sitting right there. And this is where Jesus was, and this is where his burial cloths were folded. And as you can see, this was cut out of solid rock. Now, it's been plastered, at some modern time. But this is probably the very place where Jesus was placed in a new tomb of Joseph of Arimathea. He's not here, for he is risen, the core of our belief system. He is risen indeed. Questions and comments on the geology, politics? Can this be a bunch of a constellation of accidents? Can it be just happenstance? Did all this just happen and all this stuff just fall God's way in the Bible? Or is it exactly what the Bible says? Questions? Y'all always, Carol Ann's got a question. She's, I know that look.
Dr. Ashford, you're just like so up there. I'm still like.
No. No. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, just a practical one. On your tour of the Holy Land, did you take like the life of Jesus tour where you went from the beginning to the end? Like, how did they do? I'm curious.
Well, my tour guide, Daniel, looked up. He looked at, I don't know how many people on the internet and all, and we hired a 42-year-old Israeli special ops officer who has a PhD in sciences applied to the Bible, and he had the most marked up Bible I have ever seen. He would pick us up at 8 o'clock and drop us off at 5:30 with no lunch break. You better bring your own water, because we were moving along, and he was talking the whole time. It was like drinking out of a fire hydrant. He was just, going along, and he would give Daniel the Bible, and if he wasn't quoting it, then he would say, Daniel, read Mark 16:5. And so Daniel was reading, or this guy was going the whole time we were riding along. So, no, he just kind of started at the north end of the country and worked down to the Dead Sea. So it wasn't really a chronological order, but it was more of a geographical order. Of course, the the Golan Heights is where you can look from here to the CLC, and there's ISIS cinder block places with gun emplacements there. And we said, you think those people might want to shoot at us or something? He said, no. So we got cannon trained on them, and they know that if we see a gun barrel, it'll be the end of them.
Well, that's kind of where I was going with it. When you were there, what is it like? Because these people that live there don't believe this stuff. So this is all tourism to them, right?
Yeah, well, of course, it is the main axis of their economy.
Right.
So I think if we had told them we were Greek Orthodox, oh, me too. So I'm not sure how much of that is sincere, you know. But anyway, but this guy was certainly informed, and I believe he's a Christian, and I believe he's absolutely a believer, and I believe he's a very, very well-informed believer. I mean, you're right, and there's danger lurking around every corner, and what...
ISIS out of this stuff right here. I mean, how
their security is unbelievable. I made a picture that I won't show, but of Daniel with two girls that he had visited with in a coffee shop, and they had machine guns slung over their shoulder and pistols in holsters. So, you know, I wonder how those unarmed Alabama girls are doing. But anyway, they are ready, and everybody ages 17 through 55 serves in the Israeli army, and you can serve later than that if you wish. Their main concern, to be frank with you, is that 35% of their population is Muslim and growing. So the Muslim womb is the thing that they're really worried about in Israel. When they become a majority, what will Israel be like? But there are Muslim factions, and two of those factions are extremely pro-Israel. I mean, extreme. And so the second guy in the Israeli army is Muslim, but everybody trusts him, and he's true blue. So it's the politics over there are interesting.
So do they fight in the Israeli army? They don't fight for Jesus. They fight for
Israel, for the survival of Israel, because all those countries around them want to destroy them. And these people have grown up there, and their family's been there for, in some cases, thousands of years, and they don't want it destroyed any more than a Jew does. So they have that common thing that binds them together, and you know, a lot of their intelligence comes from the fact that they've got Muslim Arabs in their intelligence service, and those people can go where a Jew could not go, and they can get intelligence that Jews can't get. So, you know, he was very forthright about that. But he was also a little cocky. He said that during the Iraqi war and all, they brought special ops people in from America, you know, to train with them should we ever have to deploy with them. And he said they were a lot better equipped than we were, but we were a lot smarter than they were. And I thought that was interesting. But anyway, the main thing was this guy would go up and down these 2,000-year-old steps like a ballerina or something, you know, like my fused ankle and my 67 years tagging along behind him. It was a mismatch, and Daniel was somewhere in between, but it's somewhere, you know, it's a great way to see things, and we got a lot done in a short time. Good question. Sorry about the long answer. Other questions? All right, well, thank you for your attention today, and we'll be back soon. We're soon going to be talking about money and giving and money in Jesus' time and money in our Christian lives. One thing we cannot escape in society is money, and we're going to learn all about it before long. And then September, we're going to go to another subject for a short time, and then in October, I'm going to teach on the creation of the universe, the biblical account of the creation of the universe and the scientific facts that we know for certain, and see how they match up. All right, anything else? Sam, would you dismiss us, please?
Sure. Dear Lord, just thank you for this opportunity for us to come together and learn more about you, and we're just thank you, Dr. Ashford, for taking the time to do his research and present this information so that we can go out better equipped in the future. And I just ask that you be with us in the coming week and stay focused on you. In Jesus' name, amen.